My parents stole my college fund to bail out my brother. After he unalived a man, then called my boss to say I was embezzling funds when I refused to help them again. When I finally told them I was done, my mom screamed, "You owe us for your whole life. You wouldn't even exist without us." I just shut the door. That was 18 months ago. Yesterday, I made her wish that all I did was refuse to help them. My therapist says I have a savior complex, but honestly, I think I'm just stupid. I was 17 working graveyard shifts at this warehouse while my brother Sean partied his way through his 5th senior year. When MIT accepted me with a full scholarship, I actually hid in the bathroom and cried. Not happy tears, scared tears, because I knew my parents would find a way to ruin it. They didn't even look at the acceptance letter. Sean was everything to them, while I was worth less than a backup. They never wanted a girl, just a boy. So it made sense when mom just said we needed to be careful how we tell Sean since he got rejected everywhere. That night, Sean drove drunk into a minivan and killed a single father. My parents drained my college savings, all $47,000 from grandma's inheritance, plus 3 years of me breaking my back at work. All of it went to Sean's lawyer. They promised they'd pay me back before fall semester, but we all knew that was a lie, including them. At the courthouse, Sean's girlfriend Melissa showed up sobbing in this black dress like she was already at his funeral. She kept whispering about their future and holding his hand. I'd met her maybe twice before this. 2 weeks later, Sean made bail and immediately overdosed on fentanyl. At his funeral, Melissa collapsed into my mother's arms, wailing that she was pregnant. Barely 8 weeks along with Sean's baby. My parents moved her into our house that same night, gave her Sean's room right next to mine. One night, I was brushing my teeth when I heard her on the phone saying, "Yeah, I'm in. They're eating it up. Give me 3 months." I stood there with toothpaste dripping down my chin, feeling like I was losing my mind. When MIT called about my enrollment deposit, I had to explain that I couldn't pay it. My parents had used my college fund as collateral for Sean's bail and lost everything. My parents' solution? To defer for a year to help Melissa with the baby. Family comes first, Eva. You can go to MIT next year. But we both knew next year would never come. I tried getting private loans but needed a cosigner. My parents refused. Said I was being selfish when Melissa needed our support. I wanted to scream that Melissa was a stranger, but I just nodded like always. One night at dinner, Melissa started crying about how she'd always dreamed of being a nurse, but never had opportunities like me. My parents enrolled her in a $40,000 a year nursing program the next day. Got a home equity loan. I ended up at community college working 60 hours a week between 3 jobs and slept in the library between classes. Meanwhile, Melissa posted constantly about her miracle rainbow baby and how Sean was watching over them from heaven. My mom made me apologize to her for being difficult. I did it because I'm pathetic. Everything changed when my parents started taking Melissa to church. The congregation saw this beautiful young widow carrying her dead boyfriend's baby and opened their wallets. Bake sales, car washes, special collections. The pastor used her story in sermons. These good people gave her over $50,000. Meanwhile, I was sleeping in my car because being at home stressed Melissa out, which wasn't healthy for the baby. My coworker's friend was a nurse at the hospital, looked up Melissa's name and said she'd never been a patient there. No prenatal appointments, no ultrasounds, nothing. Then I got a Facebook message from a 12-year-old girl. She was Melissa's daughter asking if her mom was doing the pregnancy thing again. This little girl sent me screenshots of her mom texting someone about the church score and how she had these idiots eating out of her hand. I felt sick but also vindicated. I wasn't crazy. I started documenting everything. Discovered Melissa never enrolled in nursing school, just pocketed the $40,000. My parents were now $300,000 in debt and facing foreclosure, but told everyone they were downsizing to help Melissa get settled with the baby. My great aunt saw Melissa at the casino with some guy looking very not pregnant, while supposedly on bed rest. Melissa's ex-husband sent me evidence of 3 other families she'd destroyed with the same con. The church planned this huge baby shower and something in me finally snapped. I sent the deacon everything. Melissa's daughter's texts, screenshots from gambling forums, the nursing school refund, all of it. The deacon investigated quietly. The pastor's wife, who used to be a nurse, asked to feel the baby kick at the baby shower. Melissa panicked and faked contractions. My parents rushed her to the hospital where the staff confirmed what I already knew. No baby. Never had been. They came home to a foreclosure notice and me packing. Melissa had vanished with the church donations and their savings. Now my parents won't leave me alone and are begging for me to help them. My parents begged me to co-sign a loan to save their house, but I refused. My credit was already destroyed from the private loans I'd taken out for community college. The church congregation found out about everything through the deacon and basically kicked my parents out. Then something crazy happened. My story reached this MIT alumnus through a friend of a friend who ran an engineering firm. He offered me a paid internship with a promise to sponsor my degree completion at a state school if I kept my grades up. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. So wrong. My parents started showing up at my apartment every single day. They'd sit in their car outside for hours, left notes under my door, called my jobs trying to get me fired so I'd have to move back home. I changed my locks twice, got a restraining order that they ignored. When they showed up again, the police arrested them for violating the order. They were released the next day, but at least there was a paper trail. Then my mom started posting on Facebook about how I abandoned them in their time of need, how I was an ungrateful daughter who chose money over family. People from their old church started messaging me, calling me heartless. Some of them had given thousands to Melissa and blamed me for not warning them sooner. I had to delete all my social media. My dad got creative. He called my new boss claiming I stole from my previous employer. Thank God my boss was cool about it and called me immediately. But then dad started showing up at the office. Security had to escort him out 3 times before they banned him from the building. The worst part was when they found out about my internship stipend. They got hold of my pay stubs from mail they'd intercepted. They calculated exactly how much I was making and started demanding half of it as back rent for all the years I lived with them. They actually sent me an invoice, itemized. 18 years of food, clothes, utilities. It came to over $200,000. I ignored it, obviously. Big mistake. They hired some sketchy lawyer who sent me official-looking documents. Turned out the lawyer was Melissa's cousin or something. The whole thing was fake, but it scared me enough to get my own lawyer. Cost me $2,000 I didn't have just to confirm what I already knew. They couldn't actually bill me for my childhood. My mom's next move was showing up at my community college. She told my professors I was mentally unstable and needed to come home. One professor actually pulled me aside to ask if I was okay. Another one thought I was lying about my situation for sympathy points on my final project. I had to show him the police reports and everything. Then they played the guilt card hard. My mom called 911 claiming chest pains. I only found out what really happened because the paramedic was my coworker's boyfriend, and he mentioned they'd taken her in but found nothing wrong. She'd admitted to the attending physician that she was just trying to get my attention. My dad tried a different approach. He started dating this woman named Patricia, who was apparently loaded. Widow, no kids, lonely. He moved in with her after 3 weeks. I thought finally, he'll leave me alone. Nope, he was playing the long game. name. He convinced Patricia that I was his precious daughter, who'd been brainwashed by my evil mother. Patricia started sending me money to help me escape. I sent it all back, every penny. That's when things got really weird. Patricia showed up at my apartment one night, hammered and crying. She told me my dad had been stealing from her, taking her credit cards, moving money around. She wanted my help to catch him. I told her to go to the police. She said she couldn't because she'd already given him access to her accounts voluntarily. I couldn't believe anyone could be that trusting, but there she was, living proof. I made the mistake of feeling sorry for her. Let her crash on my couch for one night. One night turned into a week. She kept promising she'd leave once she figured things out. Meanwhile, my dad was blowing up my phone, accusing me of kidnapping his girlfriend. The irony wasn't lost on me. Patricia turned out to be just as manipulative as everyone else in this story. She wasn't really broke. She'd moved most of her money to accounts he couldn't access before coming to me. She was using me to make him jealous. She'd text him photos from my apartment, telling him how much better I treated her. It was insane. I kicked Patricia out after I caught her going through my laptop. She was hunched over my desk at 3 in the morning, the screen's blue glow illuminating her face as she frantically clicked through my files. She was looking for dirt on my dad to use against him. When I flipped on the lights, she didn't even have the decency to look guilty. Just stared at me with those watery eyes and said she had a right to know what I was hiding. These people were all insane. I changed my locks again that same night, calling a 24-hour locksmith who charged me double for the emergency service, and started looking for a new apartment the next morning. My mom wasn't done though. She got a job at the grocery store where I shopped, the Little Save More on Elm Street where I'd been buying groceries for 2 years. Just showed up behind the register one day while I was buying ramen and frozen vegetables. I didn't recognize her at first. She'd dyed her hair this awful burgundy color and was wearing the store's green polyester uniform. Started crying and telling the other cashiers how I was breaking her heart, how her only daughter wouldn't even speak to her. The other customers in line shifted uncomfortably, and I could feel their judgment boring into my back. I left my groceries on the conveyor belt and never went back. Had to drive 20 minutes out of my way to a Walmart in the next town just to avoid her. Then she escalated. She found out where I worked my second job, at this little diner downtown called Rosie's. It was a classic greasy spoon with cracked vinyl booths and a jukebox that only played oldies. I'd been waitressing there for 6 months, and the regulars knew me by name. She came in during the Friday dinner rush and made a scene that I'll never forget. Told everyone I was mentally ill and off my medication, that I had violent episodes and heard voices. She was sobbing dramatically, clutching at anyone who would listen. The other diners stopped eating to stare. My manager, a no-nonsense woman named Carol, had to call the cops. 2 officers escorted my mother out while she screamed about maternal rights. I lost that job the next week. They said it wasn't because of her, that business was just slow, but we all knew better. Carol couldn't even look me in the eye when she gave me my final paycheck. My dad and Patricia got back together within days of me kicking her out. Apparently their whole drama was some weird game they played, breaking up and making up for the thrill of it. They started showing up at my apartment together, always at the worst possible times. Patricia would cry about how she just wanted to be a family, mascara running down her cheeks in perfect black streams. My dad would stand there looking smug, his arm possessively around her shoulders like he'd won some prize. Sometimes they'd bring flowers or a casserole, as if food could fix years of dysfunction. I stopped answering the door, would sit in silence with all the lights off until they finally gave up and left. The internship was the only good thing in my life. My boss, Vincent, was this older guy in his 60s who'd also grown up with crazy parents. He had this calm way about him, never rattled by anything. His office was filled with plants and classical music always played softly in the background. He got it. He let me work weird hours when I needed to avoid my family, never asking questions when I showed up at 6 a.m. or stayed until midnight, even let me sleep in the office a few times when they were camping outside my apartment. There was an old couch in the break room that became my refuge. I'd curl up with a scratchy blanket from the supply closet and try to forget my life outside those walls. But my parents found a way to mess that up too. My mom called the company claiming I was embezzling. She had these fake documents she'd made, probably spent hours on them. Screenshots of bank accounts that weren't even mine. Photoshopped statements showing large transfers. She'd even created a fake email trail. The receptionist who took the call told me later that my mom sounded so convincing, so heartbroken about her daughter's criminal behavior. Vincent had to get HR involved. They did a whole investigation that lasted 3 weeks. I had to turn over all my financial records, every bank statement for the past 2 years. Sat through multiple interviews with stone-faced HR representatives who asked the same questions over and over. It was humiliating. Even after I was cleared, people looked at me differently. While that was happening, my dad was working another angle. He'd convinced Patricia to sue me for emotional distress or something equally ridiculous. Said I'd manipulated her when she was vulnerable, that I'd turned her against him during their brief separation. The lawsuit was obviously garbage, but I still had to respond to it. Another $1,000 I didn't have for a lawyer to write a letter saying basically, this is stupid. The lawyer, a tired-looking man named Mr. Peterson, actually laughed when he read their complaint. Said it was the most baseless thing he'd seen in 20 years of practice. But I still had to pay him. I started getting paranoid, really paranoid. Checking my car for trackers every morning, running my hands under the wheel wells and bumpers, changing my routes to work, taking different streets each day, doubling back to make sure no one was following me. I found out they'd been talking to my neighbors, trying to get information about my schedule. One neighbor, this sweet old lady named Marie who always had cats in her window, told me my mom had offered her $50 to let her into the building. Said my mom had shown up with cookies and a sob story about wanting to leave me a birthday surprise. Marie told her to get lost, but it freaked me out. I started using the back entrance exclusively, climbing over the dumpster to avoid the front door. My grades started slipping. How could they not? I was working 50 hours a week between the internship and a new job at a call center, going to school full-time with a full course load, and dealing with constant harassment. I'd fall asleep in class, jerk awake to find the professor staring at me. One professor, Dr. Chen, who taught my economics class, pulled me aside after I failed a midterm. She was young, maybe early 30s, with kind eyes behind thick glasses. I broke down and told her everything, words tumbling out in a desperate rush. She helped me get extensions on my assignments and connected me with campus counseling, even offered to let me take the final exam separately if I needed to. The counselor was nice but useless. Her name was Jennifer, and she had motivational posters all over her office. She kept saying I needed to set boundaries, speaking in this soft, therapeutic voice that made me want to scream. I wanted to laugh. How do you set boundaries with people who show up at your job and get you fired? Who file fake lawsuits? Who stalk you? She suggested I write them a letter expressing my feelings. She had no answers for actual harassment, just kept pushing breathing exercises and journaling. I stopped going after 3 sessions. My mom's next move was genius in its simplicity. She started telling everyone I was on substances, posted these long Facebook rants about how she'd found needles in my old room, how I'd stolen jewelry to support my habit. She even posted photos of random syringes she'd probably found on Google Images. Complete lies, but people believed it. I started getting messages from old high school friends asking if I needed help getting clean. My cousin Sarah, who I hadn't spoken to in years, called crying about how she wished she'd known sooner so she could help. It was mortifying trying to convince people I wasn't an addict. I had to take a substance test at work because of her accusations. Vincent believed me, but company policy was company policy. I had to go to a clinic, pee in a cup while someone watched, sign forms acknowledging that a positive result meant immediate termination. The test was clean, obviously, but the damage was done. Everyone at work looked at me differently after that. Conversations stopped when I entered rooms. The easy camaraderie I'd built was gone. My dad, meanwhile, was bleeding Patricia dry. She'd call me crying about how he'd taken another credit card or emptied another account. I could hear him in the background sometimes, coaching her on what to say. She told me he'd sold her mother's antique ring, the one her mom had worn for 50 years. I told her to leave him. She'd say she loved him, that I didn't understand true love. I stopped taking her calls after she accused me of being jealous of their happiness. Then my parents did something I didn't see coming. They actually got jobs. Real jobs with W-2s and everything. My mom at a call center, my dad at a warehouse. For about 2 seconds I thought maybe they were turning things around. Maybe the rock bottom had finally come. Nope, they were building a case for why I should support them. Look how hard we're trying, they'd say. We just need a little help to get back on our feet. They'd send me photos of themselves in their work uniforms, looking tired and pitiful. They started sending me itemized budgets, professional-looking spreadsheets showing how if I just gave them $500 a month they could keep their apartment. Then it was $700 because utilities had gone up. Then $1,000 because my dad needed dental work. The numbers kept changing, but the message was the same. I owed them. They'd calculate how much they'd spent raising me, adjusting for inflation, and present me with an invoice for my childhood. I found out they were telling their coworkers about their ungrateful daughter who let them struggle while she lived the high life. My mom's supervisor, a woman named Brenda, actually called me once to lecture me about family values. She went on for 20 minutes about how her children would never abandon her, how the younger generation had no respect. I hung up on her mid-sentence. The breaking point came when they found out about my state school acceptance. Vincent had kept his promise and the sponsorship came through. Full tuition, books, even a small living stipend. I was finally going to finish my degree. I made the mistake of being happy about it on Instagram. Just one photo of the acceptance letter with a heart emoji. Private account with only 12 followers, but they had created fake accounts to follow me. My mom showed up at my apartment with printed screenshots. She'd blown them up at Kinko's, made a whole presentation. She was sobbing about how I could afford college but couldn't help them save their home. Her makeup ran in rivers down her face, and she'd worn her rattiest clothes for maximum effect. My dad was behind her with Patricia, who was crying too for some reason, clutching a tissue dramatically. They'd brought my Aunt Linda, my mom's sister, who I hadn't seen in years. Even she was in on it, going on about family responsibility and how my grandparents would be ashamed. They'd choreographed the whole thing like a play. I didn't let them in, but they wouldn't leave. They sat in the hallway for hours. My mom wailed loud enough for the whole floor to hear. My neighbors complained. Mrs. Rodriguez from 3B threatened to call the cops. The landlord called and said if it happened again, he'd start eviction proceedings. I was risking eviction because of them. Finally, I went out there and told them I'd think about it if they left. They actually believed me, packed up their guilt trip, and went home. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how they'd ruined my MIT chance, and were now trying to ruin this one too. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, running through every interaction, every manipulation, every lie. I made a decision. I was done being nice, done trying to handle this quietly, done being their victim. If they wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty too. I started documenting everything obsessively, every text, every voicemail, every time they showed up somewhere. I bought security cameras for my apartment, the good ones that uploaded to the cloud, downloaded apps to record phone calls, checked the legality of one-party consent in my state, built a file that would make any lawyer salivate, color-coded folders, chronological order, cross-referenced with police report numbers. My mom made the next move. She started a GoFundMe. Help us save our home while our daughter abandons us. She used old photos of us from when I was a kid, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, family vacations we couldn't afford even then. Wrote this sob story about how mental illness had torn our family apart, how I'd become delusional and cut them off for no reason, how they just wanted their baby girl back. She raised $3,000 in 2 days from strangers who believed her performance. I reported it to GoFundMe with all my evidence. They shut it down and froze the funds pending investigation. She tried to start another one on a different platform, but I'd already contacted them with documentation. My dad was doing his own thing with Patricia. I found out he'd convinced her to add him to her life insurance. Then he started taking her on all these dangerous activities, rock climbing with no experience, posting photos of them on cliff edges, motorcycle rides without helmets, weaving through traffic, whitewater rafting in Class 5 rapids. Patricia thought it was romantic, called him her adventure man. I thought it was attempted murder. I tried warning Patricia again, but she accused me of being jealous, said I couldn't stand to see my father happy, that I was bitter and alone and wanted everyone else to be miserable too. I gave up. Some people want to be victims. You can't save someone who's drowning if they keep swimming deeper. School started and I thought maybe I could focus on that. Wrong again. My mom had found out which campus I'd be attending. She started showing up there too, sitting in the parking lot in her hit-up Honda, watching me walk between buildings, following me between classes at a distance, pretending to read a campus map. Campus security couldn't do anything because it was public property. They'd move her along, but she'd just relocate to a different lot. She'd approach my classmates when I wasn't around, tell them about her poor sick daughter who refused to take her medication, how she was just trying to help, how dangerous I could be when I was off my meds. Some people bought it. I'd see them whispering when I walked by, moving their bags closer when I sat near them. Others saw through it and warned me when she was around. A guy named Marcus started walking me to my car, said his mom was the same kind of crazy. My dad escalated in his own special way. He started calling my professors, telling them I was a pathological liar who made up stories for attention, that my whole family tragedy was fabricated for sympathy points, that I'd probably plagiarized my assignments because I was incapable of honest work. One professor, Dr. Williams, who taught my statistics class, actually asked me about it during office hours. hours. I showed him the police reports from Sean's accident, the court documents, everything. He apologized, but the seed of doubt was planted. I could see it in how he graded my work after that, looking for any sign of deception. Patricia finally wised up when she caught my dad trying to transfer her house into his name. She called me hysterical at 2 a.m. He'd drugged her tea with sleeping pills and thought she was passed out, but she'd only pretended to drink it. She'd recorded him on her phone talking to someone about how the insurance money would set them up for life. The audio was chilling. My father calmly discussing my death like it was a business transaction. I told her to call 911. She begged me to come over instead, said she was scared, that he might come back. I almost didn't go. Almost. But something in her voice, the genuine terror, made me grab my keys. I drove over there with 911 ready to dial, running red lights, my hands shaking on the wheel. My dad's car was gone when I got there. Patricia was locked in the bathroom, terrified, clutching a kitchen knife. She showed me the recording. It was damning. My dad talking about patience, about how accidents happen, about making sure the insurance was processed before anything happened, about how I'd been depressed lately, how no one would question it. The casual evil in his voice made my skin crawl. We called the police together. They took the recording but said it wasn't enough for charges. Just speculation, they said. No actual crime committed, no direct threats. Patricia filed for a restraining order instead. My dad was furious when he got served. He blamed me, obviously. Started sending me these long rambling texts about how I'd poisoned Patricia against him, how I'd ruined his chance at happiness, how I owed him for destroying his life. The irony was thick enough to choke on. He'd conveniently forgotten all the lives he'd destroyed. My mom used the Patricia drama as ammunition, posted everywhere about how I'd broken up my father's relationship out of spite, how I couldn't stand to see anyone else happy, how I was systematically destroying the family. The narrative was so twisted I almost admired her creativity. She could have been a fiction writer with that imagination. Then came the letters from collection agencies, thick envelopes with threatening red text. Apparently my parents had been taking out loans in my name, credit cards with my social security number, personal loans with forged signatures, even a car loan for a vehicle I'd never seen. My credit was destroyed, beyond destroyed. It was in negative numbers I didn't know existed. 7 different accounts, $43,000 in debt. I filed fraud reports, police reports, spent hours on the phone with credit agencies, listening to hold music until I knew every note. Some debts got removed after months of fighting, others didn't. The collectors didn't care that it was fraud. They wanted their money. I was getting sued by 3 different companies for debts I didn't create. Process servers showing up at work, at school, embarrassing me in front of everyone. Vincent helped me find a lawyer who worked cheap. We started fighting back, but it was exhausting. Every day brought new bills, new threats, new court dates. I was drowning in paperwork while trying to maintain my grades and work enough hours to survive. My apartment looked like a law office, documents covering every surface. My parents' response to the fraud charges was predictable. They played victim, said I'd given them permission and was now lying about it. My mom even produced a fake recording of me supposedly agreeing to help them. It was obviously edited, my voice spliced together from various conversations, but it muddied the waters enough to make everything harder. The stress was culling me. I lost 20 pounds I couldn't afford to lose. My clothes hung off me like I was a scarecrow. Started having panic attacks that left me gasping on bathroom floors. Couldn't sleep without nightmares. Vincent noticed and made me take a few days off. I spent them in my apartment with the lights off, afraid to even look outside, surviving on crackers and water. That's when Melissa reappeared. Yeah, the fake pregnancy con artist. She showed up at my door like nothing had happened, wearing designer clothes she'd probably bought with her con money. Said she heard about my troubles and wanted to help. I laughed in her face. Actually laughed. It felt good, the sound harsh and bitter in the hallway. She got mad and threatened to tell everyone the truth about my family, that I'd known about her con and helped her. Complete lie, but she had old texts she could twist. Messages where I'd been nice to her before I knew the truth, offering support during her pregnancy. She wanted $10,000 to stay quiet. I recorded the whole conversation on my phone, told her to get lost. She left, but not before keying my car on the way out. A long scratch down the driver's side that would cost $800 to fix. I added it to my ever-growing police report collection. My mom found out about Melissa's visit through neighbors she'd befriended with cookies and sob stories. She used it as more evidence of my mental illness. Why would Melissa visit unless I'd been involved in the con? The logic was insane, but people listened. She was building a narrative piece by piece. School was my only escape, but even that was tainted. I'd see my mom's car in the parking lot, find notes on my windshield written in her handwriting, sometimes loving, sometimes threatening, have classmates tell me my dad had been asking about me. I started skipping classes just to avoid them, watching lectures online when professors posted them. Vincent noticed my grades dropping and called me in. His office felt like the only safe space left. I broke down completely, told him I couldn't do it anymore. The harassment, the debt, the constant fear. He listened, then did something I didn't expect. He called his own lawyer. This lawyer was different. Helen Martinez, 60 years old with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen everything. Older, meaner, had dealt with cases like mine before. She looked at my evidence and actually smiled. Said we had enough to bury them. Not just restraining orders, but actual consequences. Criminal charges. Prison time. We started building a case. My parents must have sensed something changing because they ramped up their efforts. My mom quit her job to harass me full-time. Started a blog about her ungrateful daughter. My dad started showing up with different women, all wealthy widows he was obviously scamming. He'd parade them past my apartment like some sick show, making sure I saw him through the window. Then they hit me where it really hurt. They contacted MIT, told them I'd deferred enrollment due to mental health issues, that I was unstable and shouldn't be considered for future admission. They even sent fake medical records they'd created, complete with forged psychiatrist signatures. MIT sent a formal letter stating that due to my failure to enroll and subsequent information received, my file was being closed permanently. Any chance of ever going there died that day. I cried for hours when I got the letter. I wanted to give up. Seriously considered it. Sat in my car one night with the engine running in a closed garage before I realized that would just prove them right. What was the point of fighting when they just find new ways to hurt me? But Vincent wouldn't let me quit. Neither would Helen. They said we were close to ending this. The turning point came from an unexpected source. Patricia had been digging into my dad's past. Found out he'd done this before. 3 other women over the past decade. All widows, all scammed, all too embarrassed to press charges. But Patricia was angry enough to be brave. She convinced them to come forward. We had a meeting at Helen's office. All these women sharing their stories, recognizing the same patterns. Suddenly we had a pattern, a history, real evidence of fraud and manipulation spanning years. The police finally started taking it seriously. A detective named Morrison got assigned to the case. He was thorough, building a timeline of my father's cons, investigations. Things were moving. My mom caught wind of the investigation and panicked. She started calling me dozens of times a day. The voicemails cycled through every emotion. Apologizing, begging, threatening, bargaining, each one more desperate than the last. I didn't answer but saved every voicemail. Helen said they were gold for our case. She showed up at Vincent's office with a gun. Not loaded, she claimed later, though who knows the truth. Just wanted to scare me into dropping the charges. Security tackled her in the lobby before she made it past reception. She was arrested on the spot, screaming about her rights as a mother. Finally, real consequences. My dad tried to run, packed up whatever he could steal from Patricia, and headed for the state line in her car. The police caught him at a gas station. Patricia's credit cards in his wallet and her jewelry in his trunk. He was arrested too, and the mugshot made the local news. The relief I felt was indescribable. For the first time in years, I could breathe. I could go to class without looking over my shoulder, could come home without checking for their cars, could answer my phone without fear. It was over, or so I thought. Because even from jail, they found ways to reach out, collect calls and letters proclaiming their innocence. But that's a different nightmare altogether. For now, I was free. The calls from jail started immediately. Collect calls every hour, automated messages asking if I'd accept charges from the county detention center. I blocked the number, but they'd use different phones. Other inmates' phone time, guards' desk phones, anything to get through. I changed my number 3 times in 2 weeks. Helen told me to document everything for the upcoming hearings. Not trials, just hearings about bail and protective orders. My parents had public defenders who kept filing motions. Apparently being arrested violated their constitutional rights as parents or something equally stupid. The paperwork never stopped. My mom's cellmate started writing me letters. Said my mom talked about me constantly. Had this whole fantasy about reconciling when she got out. The cellmate wanted money to keep my mom away from her. I threw the letters in my evidence box and kept moving. Vincent gave me more hours at the internship to help with legal fees. I was basically living at the office, coding until my eyes burned. My coworkers knew something was up but didn't ask questions. Just brought me coffee and occasionally forced me to take breaks. Then my Aunt Linda started her campaign. She'd been quiet during the arrests, but now she was on a mission. Started showing up at my apartment with other relatives I hadn't seen in years. Cousins, great aunts, people who crawled out of nowhere, all with the same message. Family is family. You don't send family to jail. Linda was the worst. She'd camp outside my building with signs. Eva destroyed our family, in red marker. Daughter sends loving parents to prison, in block letters. She'd tell anyone who'd listen about how I was tearing the family apart. The other tenants started avoiding me. She got creative with her harassment. Started ordering pizzas to my apartment at 3 a.m. Subscribed me to hundreds of magazines. Put my number on every telemarketing list she could find. Posted it on Craigslist ads for free puppies. My phone became unusable from the constant calls. I was studying for finals when she escalated. Showed up at campus with my mom's friends from church, the ones who still believed her lies. They surrounded me in the library, praying loudly for my soul. Security removed them, but the damage was done. Everyone stared at me like I was contagious. My dad's lawyer contacted me directly, which Helen said was illegal but happened anyway. He wanted me to write a character letter for my dad's sentencing. Said it would help reduce his time. I laughed so hard I cried. The audacity was almost impressive. Patricia surprised me by staying strong. She testified at every hearing about my dad's scams. Brought receipts, bank statements, recordings. The other women he'd conned came forward too. Their stories were eerily similar to mine. Love bombing, financial drain, emotional manipulation, classic predator pattern. My mom's public defender tried a different approach. Mental health defense. Said she was having a breakdown from losing Sean. That grief made her do crazy things. They wanted me to testify about her mental state. Helen shut that down fast. The hearings were brutal. Sitting in those courtrooms, seeing my parents in orange jumpsuits and shackles. My mom sobbed theatrically every time she saw me. My dad just stared with this cold anger. The judge seemed tired of their drama already. Linda ramped up her efforts during the hearings, started a petition to drop the charges, got signatures from people at their old church who still believed my parents were victims. She'd stand outside the courthouse with her clipboard, telling everyone I was a monster who betrayed family. She even got some local blogger interested, this guy who wrote about family values and traditional parenting. He did a whole series about how children today have no respect for their elders. Used my story as an example without using names, but everyone knew. The comment section was brutal. I focused on school and work. What else could I do? Finals were coming and I couldn't let them steal this degree too. Studied in my car between hearings, wrote papers in courthouse waiting rooms, submitted assignments from my phone during recess. My grades held steady somehow. My professors were understanding when I explained the situation. Dr. Chen even let me take an exam early when it conflicted with a court date. Small mercies in the chaos. Then came the letters from prison. Not just from my parents, but from other inmates they'd convinced to write me. All saying the same things. How sorry my parents were. How they'd found God. How they just wanted to make amends. I recognized my mom's writing style in half of them. My dad managed to call from a contraband phone. Don't ask me how he got it. The call came at 2 a.m., his voice low and threatening. Said I'd regret this. That family was forever. That he'd make sure I paid for betraying them. I recorded it and gave it to Helen. That recording got him solitary confinement and additional charges. Witness intimidation or something. His lawyer tried to claim it wasn't really him on the phone. The voice analysis proved otherwise. Another few years added to his sentence. My mom took a different approach. Started writing to judges, prosecutors, anyone with authority. Claimed I'd manipulated the system. That I was the real criminal who'd stolen from them. She included fake evidence she created in her cell. Hand-drawn bank statements showing deposits I'd never made. Linda believed every word. Started her own investigation. Showing up at my old jobs asking questions. Trying to find proof I was the real con artist. She convinced a few people I'd seemed sneaky or secretive. Built this whole narrative about me being a master manipulator who'd framed my innocent parents. The stress was affecting everything. I'd wake up at 4 a.m. in cold sweats. Couldn't eat without my stomach cramping. Lost more weight. Vincent made me see a doctor who prescribed anxiety medication I couldn't afford. I filled the prescription anyway and rationed the pills. Patricia stayed in touch through everything. We had this weird friendship born from trauma. She'd check in weekly, make sure I was eating, even brought groceries sometimes. Said she understood what it was like to be targeted by someone you trusted. The other women my dad had scammed formed a little support group. We'd meet for coffee after hearings, compare notes on his tactics. It was validating in a sick way. Proof that I wasn't crazy or overreacting. He'd done this to all of us. Then Linda found my mom's blog. Yeah, the one she'd started before getting arrested. Linda took it over, posting updates about the injustice of the situation. Posted old family photos with captions about happier times before I went crazy. The comments were split between sympathy and people calling out the obvious lies. She started a GoFundMe for their legal defense. Used photos of my parents looking sad and frail, Raised a few thousand before I reported it with documentation of their actual crimes. GoFundMe investigated and refunded the donations to the contributors. Linda tried again on a different platform, but word had spread. My finals week coincided with my dad's sentencing. I spent the morning in court watching him get 15 years for fraud, theft, and witness intimidation. He screamed at me as they led him away, called me every name imaginable. The bailiffs had to drag him out. I took my calculus final that afternoon. My hands were still shaking from the morning's drama. Nearly failed but scraped by with a C. Good enough. I was just trying to survive at this point. My mom's sentencing was the next week. Her lawyer played up the grieving mother angle hard. The judge wasn't buying it. She got 5 years for harassment, fraud, and the GN incident. Cried about missing my graduation. I felt nothing. Linda lost it at the sentencing. Started screaming at me in the courtroom. Had to be physically removed. She was banned from the courthouse after that. Didn't stop her from waiting outside to follow me to my car, yelling about family loyalty the whole way. With them finally locked up, I thought I could breathe. Focus on finishing school, graduate, and move on. But Linda wasn't done. She moved into my parents' old apartment to maintain it for when they got out. Started going through their things. She found all their documentation about me. Every receipt they'd kept from my childhood. Every photo. Every report card. Built this shrine to prove what good parents they'd been. Posted photos online daily. Look how happy Eva was before she turned evil. I graduated quietly. No fanfare. Vincent and Helen came to the ceremony. Patricia too. My little chosen family. We went to dinner at a chain restaurant and I cried into my pasta. Happy tears this time. I'd actually done it despite everything. The job offer from Vincent's company came the next day. Full-time position with benefits. Real salary. I could finally get my own place somewhere they'd never find me. Somewhere Linda couldn't camp outside with signs. I started apartment hunting in the next state over. Found a little studio near the office. Nothing fancy, but it had good locks and security cameras. The landlord didn't ask too many questions about my credit when I explained the identity theft. Linda found out I was moving through social media stalking. Showed up at my apartment with a U-Haul, convinced she was going to stop me. Brought cousins I'd never met. They tried to physically block my car. I called the police and they scattered. She followed me to the state line. Actually followed my moving truck for 3 hours until state troopers pulled her over. I watched in my rearview mirror as they made her turn around. It was the last time I saw her. My new apartment felt like a fortress. I set up my secondhand furniture and felt safe for the first time in years. Changed my name legally to something common. Started fresh. The relief was overwhelming. Work was good. Really good. I threw myself into projects. My coworkers didn't know my history and I kept it that way. Just another young engineer starting her career. Normal, boring, perfect. The letters from prison still came, but to my old address. Linda forwarded them for a while until I got a cease and desist order. Then they stopped. The phone was quiet. No more 3 a.m. calls or voicemails. I started therapy with someone who specialized in family trauma. Worked through the guilt, the anger, the grief for parents I never really had. Learned that protecting yourself isn't selfish. That family isn't an excuse for abuse. 6 months into my new life, I got a letter from Patricia. She'd met someone new, a nice normal accountant who treated her well. She was happy. Said I'd saved her life by exposing my dad. Thanked me for being brave when she couldn't be. The other women he'd scammed reached out occasionally. Updates on their lives, how they'd recovered financially and emotionally. We had a weird bond. All of us survivors of the same predator. They were rebuilding too. My credit slowly improved as the fraudulent accounts aged off. I got a secured credit card, then a real one. Built my score back point by point. It took years, but I got there. Even qualified for a car loan eventually. Vincent retired but stayed in touch. Sent birthday cards and asked about my projects. Said he was proud of how far I'd come. Helen too. She'd text occasionally to check in. My chosen family looking out for me. I heard through the grapevine that Linda had been arrested for harassment. Not of me, but some other family member who'd crossed her. Pattern of behavior finally catching up. My parents had created their own monster in her. Their release dates feel far away but creep closer. 15 years, 5 years. Time moves differently when you're free versus counting days. I've built contingencies, restraining orders ready to file, security systems, plans to disappear again if needed. But for now, I'm okay. Living my quiet life, going to work, coming home to my safe apartment, cooking dinner for one, reading books, normal things that feel like miracles after everything. Sometimes I dream about them. Wake up checking locks and windows. The trauma doesn't just vanish, but it fades, becomes manageable. Life grows around it like plants through concrete. I never got MIT, never got that perfect life I'd planned at 17, but I got something else. Freedom, peace, a life they can't touch. That's worth more than any degree. My therapist says I don't have a savior complex anymore. Says I learned to save myself instead. Maybe that's true, or maybe I'm still just stupid, but I'm stupid with boundaries now, and that makes all the difference.